A very good afternoon to one and all present here. Respected Chairman of Powai Education Committee, Shri C.A. Shankar B. Shetty, General Manager Dr. Sandeep Singh, our resource person for the day, Dr. E. Prasad, Faculty at IIT Madras, Principal Dr. Sridhara Shetty, Vice Principal and IQAC Coordinator Dr. Liji Santosh, Vice Principal Professor Sandesh Shetty, my colleagues, and all the teachers who have joined us today from various colleges. I, Professor Prachi Agarwal, on behalf of Burn Sanghas SM Shetty College of Science, Commerce and Management Studies, extend a very warm welcome to all of you. I hope and I pray that you all are safe and healthy in this COVID-19 pandemic situation. Following the tradition of our college, before starting the webinar, let's invoke the blessings of Almighty.
Shubham karoti kalyanam arogyam dhana sampada Shubham karoti kalyanam arogyam dhana sampada Shatru buddhi vinashaya Deepajyotir namostute Namostute Shubham karoti kalyanam Arogyam dhana sampada Shubham karoti kalyanam Arogyam dhana sampada Shatru buddhi vinashaya Deepajyotir namostute Namostute
Thank you, sir. Outcome-based education has become the need of the hour. As we're moving from content-based education to outcome-based education, we as teachers have a major role to play in this process. Hence, our college today has organized this webinar on outcome-based education for all the teachers out there. Now, we will start with this webinar with our national anthem. So I request all the participants to kindly rise for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you, everyone. Now I invite Principal Dr. Sridhara Shetty to deliver the welcome address.
Good afternoon, one and all. Respected Chairman of Powai Education Committee, C.A. Shankar B. Shetty. Today's esteemed guest, and the resource person, Dr. Edmana Prasad from IIT Madras. Our General Manager, Mr. Sandeep Singh, Vice Principals, Dr. Liji Santosh and Professor Sandesh Shetty, Vice Principal, Junior College, Ms. Pratibha Gadgali, my technical team, colleagues, and the participants from different parts of India. Welcome to you all. In fact, we have chosen a very pertinent area for discussion today. In fact, we have to salute NAAC for acting as the catalyst of quality of higher education. So quality has changed for the last 20 years because of the right kind of intervention by NAAC. And the NAAC visit is not an event of 1 day or 2 days. It's always an ongoing process. For example, there is a gap of 5 years. It means that 365 days into 5, we have to work on that. And today we have selected what you mean by the outcome-based learning or education. When we talk or discuss in certain platforms, we discuss about the output and the outcome. For example, if you produce 100% result with many distinction and first classes, and if our students are not employable outside, then what is the meaning of that distinction and first classes? So there is a shift now. So many shifts have taken place from teacher-centric to student-centric. Now it is from output to outcome-based. So according to us, 3 things should simultaneously take place in a higher level learning or in a degree college or in a post-graduation. One is, no doubt, acquisition of knowledge in the domain area. If it is accounting, accounting. BSc IT, it is information technology. So domain knowledge is very, very essential. And the second part is skills upgradation, right kind of skills related to that particular program. For example, BCom is a program. What is the ultimate intention of that after 3 years? The career objective is an accountant or a tax consultant. For example, we have a BBI program, banking and insurance. What is the career intention of those students after 3 years? Maybe banking, maybe insurance. BSc IT, maybe information technology. Therefore, here, today we are going to discuss about the program outcome, program specific outcome, and the course outcome. If the teachers are taught and trained in this way by experts like Dr. Edmund Prasad, who are going to share their knowledge and experience with us, and our teachers along with their HODs, they will frame their program outcome, even subject outcome. Dr. Prasad, in a year, we have 6 UG programs and 2 PG programs. In 2 semesters, in a year, we are teaching more than 250 subjects in an academic year. And if the teachers prepare the program outcome and the course outcome and share that with our students, and our students are made as the active learning partners, both teachers and students take it forward, I think the outcome is fantastic. At least they are employable when they step out of this institution. So we have heard about Dr. Edmund Prasad because you are an expert in this field. I think we have done so many programs of this kind. So since 1 month we are searching for you, sir. Actually, in fact, today the day has come, and we are really delighted to have you as a resource person. And one more thing is you are from IIT Madras. So without wasting much time, without the support of and encouragement from my management, I cannot take it forward. I think for the last 2 months, we have conducted more than 35 very meaningful, relevant, value-added webinars. I think today is the second one. After the conclusion of this, one more webinar is going to take place. So I extend a cordial welcome to our chairman of Power Education Committee, CA Shankar B. Shetty. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
I take this opportunity to extend a hearty welcome to today's resource person, Dr. Edmund Prasad, Professor IIT Madras. Sir, I welcome you. I also take this opportunity to extend my welcome to my colleagues, Dr. Liji Santosh and Professor Sandesh Shetty, Vice Principals of the Degree College, Ms. Pratibha Gadgali of Junior College, my General Manager, Mr. Sandeep Singh, all my colleagues, my expert IT team, and also the participants from different parts of India. I think this would be a quite enriching session, and definitely you will make a difference in the career of students when they step out of this institution. This is the ultimate intention of what you mean by the outcome-based learning or teaching. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request our Vice Principal and IQAC Coordinator, Dr. Liji Santosh, to introduce our resource person for the day.
Good afternoon. It's my honor to introduce such an eminent academician, Dr. Edamanna Prasad. Dr. Edamanna Prasad is working as a professor at Department of Chemistry, Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. His research interests are in the area of light-matter interaction. In addition to chemistry research, he is also interested in teaching learning. He was former head of Teaching Learning Center at IIT Madras and presently associated with the center as a core team member. He has been awarded the prestigious Alexander von Humboldt Fellowship from Germany and Young Faculty Recognition Award from IIT Madras for his contributions in research and teaching. He has conducted several faculty development programs and teaching workshops for faculty members in the higher education sector of the nation. Dear sir, we are blessed with your presence today amongst us and looking forward to learn from you. We are really honored to have you amongst us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I invite Chairman of Power Education Committee, Shri CA Shankar B. Shetty, to kindly address the participants.
Good afternoon, everybody. Today's resource person, Dr. Prasad ji, Principal Dr. Sridhar Shetty, Vice Principals, staff, and all the participants. I'm very happy to be here today. I think you have taken one of the relevant subject for discussion today. As we know, this world is going to be drastically different from what it is before. Changes are taking place at very accelerated pace. Graduates who are coming out now should possess relevant skills which can match this space. Along with IQ, good EQ should be developed with the students. Elevate the students to emotional quotient, expose them for experiential teaching, and able to respond to the situation rather than reacting to the situation. Although our subject does not cover the adequately in this respect, I think that today's teachers play a dominant role to bring students to have emotional control, empathy, teamwork, self-control, strong social skills, etc. Today we have with us Dr. Prasad ji, an alumni of IIT Madras. I think IIT is the place where, outcome-based education is totally recognized, and it is world known this. And we have a right kind of person who can really take us to the right spirits of this webinar. Without taking much of your time, I want to thank and congratulate all our team for coming out with such a beautiful seminars one by one and making and enriching our participants and teachers. Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind and encouraging words. Now I invite our resource person for the day, Dr. E. Prasad, to kindly begin the session.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all of you. I am extremely happy to be here today and for this opportunity to talk to so many teachers in the country from various parts. And particularly, I'm happy because your college is organizing such webinars during this pandemic time. See, instead of simply sitting back, you are trying level best, whatever we can do at this situation to improve teaching learning processes in the country. That is appreciable, highly appreciable. So with this small introduction, we will go to the subject, but before we go to the slides and all, I just want to mention one aspect about outcome-based education. See, generally teachers largely see this outcome-based education as outcome-focused education. There's a mistake. In outcome-based education, outcome is not the focus. The focus is the process. If process is focused, outcome is a natural consequence. So please understand that the name is outcome-based education, but we are not looking only on the result or the outcome. We should focus on the process. If the process is the right way you design, automatically you get the designed outcome. Unless we focus, we means teachers, focus on the process, we may not get outcome. We may get outcome only on paper. So this particular aspect, I think I want to put it first. Now we will go to the slides. The way that I arranged the webinar is not based on a complete lecture. We may have breaks in between, and I invite response from you. I have questions for all the participants, and I will use the chat box. I think probably Liji can help me to, if I am missing some of the responses, some of the coordinators can help me to get those responses. But we keep inviting the responses because in outcome-based education, as Professor Sridhara Shetty was telling, it's a more learner-centric approach. So that means teachers should not consume the entire time. We should know learner-centric approach means centrally learner is placed. That means the person who is listening or learning. And in such a learning space, teacher should not take all the space. So in a webinar, online or offline, it is very important that we should incorporate the learners. So the program is arranged in such a way. Now I will share the screen. Some of you can just tell me that you are able to see the. Are you able to see the slide?
Not yet, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It's visible now.
All right. Okay. So we are going to discuss for the next 90 minutes about OBE, outcome-based education, which is a new way of, it's another method of training the learners compared to a conventional teaching learning process. We will see the features. OBE is considered to be effective than the conventional method because it is organized or it is envisaged on 3 pillars. The 3 pillars are written there. First thing in a teacher who is planning to do outcome-based education is he or she need to ask, what is the intended learning? So you are going to teach a topic, but the question is, what are you going to teach? The question is, as a result of your teaching, what the student is going to do. What is the intended learning? So we normally call it by various names. One general name is learning outcome. According to the context, it is called course outcome, program educational outcome, but those are all contextual names. The idea is that we are trying to describe the intended learning. It is the teacher's expectation that this is what student is supposed to learn. That is called learning outcome. So the first step in the OBE is teacher should be trained on how to design the outcomes. Second thing is, now you have an outcome in your hand, one or many, but then depends upon the outcome, you need to choose a method of teaching. OBE will not be sustainable if you teach on the same way. You have to change the ways of teaching according to the outcome that you are expecting. It's like input output. Output will change only when input change. So you have say outcome is this, but you teach the same way, then outcome will not change. So it's very important that teacher should keep changing the method of teaching, which should be suitable for the outcome. And the last one is learning verification. So all the three things are very important for a teacher. First one is what is to be learned. Teacher should have clarity on that. And for that particular learning, what method I should adopt. That is, it's also equally important. And the third one is constant verification of learning. I am teaching, but are they learning? So this question keeps coming to the teacher on every minute of the teaching session. So a combination of these three things will make OBE. We will go through these three aspects one by one. I want all of you are teaching some courses. I want you to think about a course that you are going to teach. And please write one outcome for the course. No need to use chat box now, but you can write it down. This is one expected learning. Outcome means your expected learning in that course. Please write one outcome and keep it with you. We are going to use it as we proceed. Thanks to NAC and NBA, I think all college teachers are now aware about these things, but we'll go to the details. Okay, I hope you have an outcome written in front of you. I'm not sure whether you asked these two questions for writing the outcome, but these two questions are very important. Before you write outcome, you should have asked these two questions. Question number one, what should students know and be able to do as a result of my teaching, as a consequence of my instruction? That is question number one. Question number two, how will students be able to think, or at what cognitive level will the students perform? Cognitive level means thinking level. Your learning outcome statement must answer these two questions. You can yourself verify now because you have an outcome in front of you. Verify whether these questions are answered in that statement. If these questions are not answered, it simply means that the outcome design is not proper. So these two aspects, the outcome statement should reflect on two aspects. One is a student's action. As a consequence of my teaching, what they are supposed to do. There should be an action in that outcome statement. Second thing is, when they do that action, which level of thinking will be involved? I'm particularly focusing on the thinking aspect. There are other aspects of learning like feelings or attitudes or body, mind, skill, but we are now focusing on the thinking aspect because that is the predominant aspect of a course-based education system. So these two questions, even if now your outcome is not answering, I prefer you to keep the questions with you because these are the questions which act as the criteria for designing outcomes. So as we proceed, we again come back to these questions and then use this question to properly design outcomes. Now that in this slide, what you are seeing is some guidelines for designing outcome. Just one slide back, we said the outcome must contain students' action. If it contains students' action, all actions are verb. So one of the guidelines, a non-negotiable guideline for outcome design is outcome must contain a verb, because that verb is the one that shows that student is doing this action. The action can be cognitive, doesn't have to be physical. It can be a cognitive action, thinking action, but it's just a verb, and that verb has to be observable. This is a very important condition. Why it has to be observable? Otherwise, you may not be able to know whether the student is able to do it or not. So the expected action from the student should be observable in nature. So the two steps that a faculty should follow for designing outcome is: step one, what is a student expected to be able to do? So you are teaching something. As a result of my teaching, what they are expected to do. This has to be utmost clarity for the teacher. Second step is, when they do this action, which level of thinking is involved? So the two aspects, one is action from student side and the other one level of thinking. These two things should be there in the outcome statement. I'm showing the two aspects in this slide. All of you are familiar about Bloom's taxonomy. These are the levels that we are mentioning, which level the student will be thinking, right? There are 6 levels of thinking. Remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. And I think many teachers are familiar about these levels, even though I am not very sure the kind of thinking in each level, whether everybody is familiar or not, but we'll discuss about that. These 6 levels are very clear to all. And on the left side, what you are seeing is the observable action words that a teacher wants the students to do. Some teachers want them to write something, some teachers want to plan something, some teachers want to design something, some teachers want to calculate, some of them want to plot. So there are innumerable number of action words that every teacher wants their students to, depends upon the course, depends upon the subject, depends upon the topic. So these are the actions. Now, for you, the important aspect in the design of outcome is, when they do the action verb, which level they are working. That only subject experts can do. That means only teachers can do that. In your subject, when they calculate something, are they calculating by remembering the steps? Or are they calculating by applying some concept? Or are they calculating by some analytical method? When they correlate something, are they correlating based on their memory, remembering? Or are they correlating after making some judgment by themselves? So that is an evaluation level activity. So assigning the action to the level, that is the job actually a teacher is supposed to do in designing outcome. Any action can come in any level. There is no a priori binding. Okay. Let us quickly go through the levels, and then I will ask you to tell your expected action and the corresponding level of thinking as per your current understanding. When we say these levels, Bloom's and co-workers arranged in a hierarchical fashion, increasing fashion. But it doesn't mean that remember is a bad idea and create is the only good idea. Some teachers think that I need to put outcomes only in the upper level because lower levels are not important. There is no indication like that. This is not arranged in the order of importance. This is arranged in the order of increasing difficulty. So as they go up, an average learner, okay, it's a statistical analysis, an average learner may feel difficulty for creating means come up with new ideas compared to keep something in the memory, remembering. So that is the idea that arranged in a hierarchical fashion. Some aspect that you teach, you want them to remember. and some aspect you want them to understand. The word understand is slightly confusing for many teachers. What Bloom's try to convey by understand is
I think there's some technical problem at Dr. Prasad's end.
Yes.
Sir's voice and video paused.
Dr. Prasad, you're not able to hear to you or see you. Meanwhile, I request all the participants to post their questions in the Q&A box. We will take up all the questions at the end of the session.
Yeah.
Sir has joined. Sir has joined again.
Yes.
Okay.
So the difference between apply and analyze level, that is what we were discussing. I think we'll go to the slides again.
Yes, sir.
Few slides now.
No,
Sir, you
sir,
have
we
to share it again.
All right. Do that. Screen sharing. Okay, it will come in a minute.
Yes, sir. We can see it now.
So the difference between apply and analyze level is very simple. Apply means the student is using the information in a very familiar context. Whereas analyze means the familiarity is gone. They have the data, but they don't know how to proceed. The connection between the data set is not very clear. Whereas, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh, all right. So the analyze level is, there is a huge data set, but what is step 1, what is step 2, what is step 3 is not clear to the learner. They have to figure it out, the connection between the datas. If that is the situation, then we say the thinking is analytical in nature. Now the top 2 levels, normally universities don't prefer to have questions there because multiple answers are possible in both cases. Evaluate means judging. Many teachers make this mistake. They say that justify your answer. Suppose there is a question like that, that is an evaluate level question. Not necessarily. The question is, how do they justify? Are they making the judgment based on their own evaluation, their own hypothesis, or are they making judgment because it is available in the book or by the teacher? So that it's very important that judgment has to be owned by the learner. Learner develop a hypothesis and then say that based on the hypothesis that I generated, I think this is the one. So they choose based on their own hypothesis. Then we can say they are evaluating. Only when we say that they are evaluating. But if their decision is based on some prior knowledge which we have given to them, then they are not evaluating. So there's a difficulty in judging that the person is actually evaluating or using some other information and then saying the decision. Since the evaluation level thinking demands developing a hypothesis, they can come up with multiple hypotheses. So we cannot say that there's only one answer in the evaluate level. Similar is the create level. Create means new idea. You cannot say that you think only this way to come up with a new idea. There can be multiple ways. So because of the complexity of these levels, university exams normally don't focus this because evaluation becomes difficult. We normally focus on remember, understand, apply, analyze. But these 2 levels are very important in higher education. It is a duty of the teachers to ignite young minds with the decision-making skills and creative thinking. So now we have briefly discussed about the levels. What I want you to do now is the following. I want you to come up with an outcome. So your job is identify an observable thinking action from the student and the corresponding level. Okay, now you can use the chat box. I will stop sharing. Come up with your outcome. It contains two aspects. One is a observable action verb, and the other one is a chat box or question answer. There is an option for question answer also. Okay. Sahana is writing course is management accounting. Yeah. People solves the problem. Yeah. So solve is an action word. Now I also need level of thinking. So when I say outcome, it contains two parts. One is action. One is the corresponding level of thinking. Without those two, outcome design is not complete. So Mahfouz can actually add which level of thinking is involved. Preeti is writing, student will be able to calculate cross-country rates. Level is apply. Yeah, so this calculation may be based on some principles. They are using those principles. Then it is an apply level. But the same calculation can be analytical level if you change the situation, context, and don't give the information straightforward. If you put it in an indirect way, the same calculation can be in analytical level. So I want you to understand that the word calculate never binds any thinking level. Okay. In chat box, I'm getting some other response. Oh, there are so many. Now, is it okay? Course students will be able to analyze and interpret the books of banking company. Yeah, analyze and interpret. So what is the level? Maybe we can simply use interpret, which can be an analytical thinking process. Analyze is only a level. We should tell the students what is his or her job. Interpretation is their job. So we tell that students will be able to interpret the books of banking company, and the level demanding for interpretation analyze. So another these learners should be able to evaluate the impact of advertisement on our society. Which level of thinking is demanded? Prachi, can you tell in that particular outcome that you have designed, which level of thinking is?
A higher level of thinking when students can even judge after reading the course, so
Okay.
they can form their own thinking.
So you want them to be in the evaluate level.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're saying that they will evaluate the impact of advertisement on our society, which means essentially every student may come up with their own evaluation process.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Then they are actually judging or evaluating. Any other responses?
So we have a few answers in the Q&A box.
Yeah, please, can you just read them?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the course is International Finance, and students will be able to calculate cross-currency rates. So you're not audible.
Yeah, so that one I responded. The teacher says it is an apply level job, which can which can be an apply level job. Depends upon the situation. Calculation can be an apply level job. Yes.
Yes, sir. So next is quote is entrepreneurship, and outcome is to understand the process of setting up his own business. To understand the process of setting up his own business.
Here we need to be a little bit cautious. Understand the process. Now, how do I understand they understand the process? So unless they do something as a teacher, I don't understand whether they understand it or not. So I prefer teachers not to use the word understand for outcome. Many teachers do this, they use the word understand because the intent is good. All teachers want their students to understand. But when you use the word understand to communicate, this is the expected learning, this is the outcome, there can be confusion. Because what exactly you mean by understand is not clear. Understand a process. How do I know that they understand the process? Unless they explain to me or unless they do something with that process, I am not in a position to do the learning verification. I am not in a position to realize or recognize that they understand it. So understand is a verb, but it is not an observable verb. So I want this to get across to all teachers. Understand is not an observable action word. And we, in our definition of outcome, we clearly say that outcome must contain a verb which is observable. So please remove the word understand, which is difficult. I know that. One way to remove that word is just ask this question. When they do something, you can say that now they understand. What is that they are doing? That will give you the answer for that particular action, which can be replaced, which can replace the word understand. Okay, any other thing?
Yes, sir. So course is public relations and outcome is compare publicity and advertising from promotional perspective.
Okay, which level of thinking is required?
I think Vanita ma'am can write the answer in the chat box or Q&A again.
Because compare is the action. To do that
Yes, sir.
particular comparison, which level of thinking is required? That is actually design. That is where the difficulty of design outcome comes. We need to assign a level of thinking.
So we have few more.
Okay.
So course is financial accounting and outcome is students shall be able to apply provisions of Indian Companies Act to prepare final accounts of limited company.
Okay, so there is a use of an act in a particular context. That can be an apply level job. That is fine. Next one.
The next is students will be able to apply various management decisions making techniques. So apply various management decision making techniques.
Yeah. So yeah, in apply, some teachers use the level name itself as an action word. For apply level, it is not making much of a problem. But when you go to analyze level, if the teachers write, I want my students to analyze these things, I think it's not helping the students. When we say analyze, there can be many types of analysis: comparing, correlating, identifying. So unless teachers have pinpoint the exact action word that teachers are looking from the students and then telling them, the embedded words are not helping. I want my students to analyze. I want my students to apply. These are all levels of thinking. But please remember, in each of these levels of thinking, there are few tens of words, action words we can use. So normally I suggest teachers to use an action word instead of the level names. Okay. Next one.
Next is students will be able to make inter-firm comparison.
Okay. Which level are they suggesting the level?
No, sir, they are not suggesting the level. So teachers, please write the level as well in the chat box. So sir, next is students should be able to critically analyze the biasness of media, and the level is analyze and evaluate.
But when you say critically analyze, then expect some judgment. There is not actually there in that outcome statement. When we say critically analyze, they can keep on critically criticize the impact of this one, but they don't have to take a decision. When you say evaluate level means they have to make a stand, they have to take a decision. If you want them to be in the evaluate level, you need to add that part, decision making part also in the outcome statement. What else?
So we have few more, but level is not mentioned actually.
Okay, so I think, this aspect we'll request them to go back and do it. We'll now continue for the next slides. But in outcome-based education, this is the first exercise teachers have to do. They have to sit back with their syllabus and then think, what is that I am expecting as a teacher about my students' performance, thinking performance. And when,
So,
yeah.
just one more. So just
Yeah.
one more is there.
Yeah.
Course is cost accounting. So outcome is students will be able to interpret the cost accounting statement. And one more is there, student will be able to compare the difference between financial accounting and cost accounting.
Okay.
And level is analyzing. So analysis.
So when they compare these things, they have to make sure that when they compare, the student is actually analyzing. As I said, analyze means the huge data set. They have to find out the connection between the information that you have given. The connection should not be very clear. Then they are analyzing. So in a situation where a huge data set is given and they are trying to identify the connection, then we can say, now they are actually analyzing in the comparison process. Okay, great. So now we will go back to the slides one more time. Where now you can see the first step. Now just we finished. Now we are going to the second part. Once you have an outcome, the second question, as we said, is what is a suitable method of teaching? Here are a bunch of teaching methods for you. Obviously, in a 90-minute session, I may not be able to do all of these things, right? But I just want to get you the awareness that there is no dearth for teaching methods. They are called research-based instructional strategies, RBIS. You can Google it. Many RBIS are available. And maybe one thing which is very interesting, that you may not see a method called lecture, which is a traditional aspect. There's nothing bad about lecture. I'm not trying to undermine the importance, but in research-based instructional strategies or in outcome-based education, lecture is not considered as a very effective teaching method. Mainly because there are so many studies happened and they compare a lecture-based class and a learner-centered method where teacher always verify whether the learning is happening or not. And the effectiveness of such classes were compared, and always, invariably, across the globe, the interactive classes makes better result. So that's why lecture is not projected as a very good method of teaching. You may see active learning, cooperative learning, just-in-time teaching, concept test, case-based learning, formative assessment. Many of these methodologies or the methods of teaching have similarities, but there are subtle differences also. Now, we'll quickly see why this has, why a teacher has to go through RBIS. Below the slide, there is a reference. It is coming in science engineering, student performance in science, engineering, and mathematics, proceedings of National Academy of Sciences. In the journal, this paper was published. This is actually a meta study. Do you know what is a meta study means? Meta study means study about many studies. That is called a meta study. So there are like over 200 studies about why a class has to be interactive in nature. Okay, so this study is about those 200 research papers. It has clearly shown that there is no further need for trial experiments on RBIS, as the existing evidence is abundant enough to support its efficacy, which essentially means that no need for waiting to somebody to do the experiment and then ensure that instructional strategies works compared to lecture. There are enough evidence in the literature which clearly tells that there are methodological teaching makes a better impact in learning compared to conventional lecture-based class. So this is where I said in the beginning, in OBE, the focus is on RBIS. If you choose the right teaching strategy, whatever outcome that you planned, it will come. But if you make a mistake here, then you may not get the actual outcome that you are expecting. Look at this slide. This is a comparative study. We will describe on the left screen, left figure, which is top, which is written as FCI. FCI is Force Concept Inventories. It's a basic physics course. So what essentially they are doing is they are comparing two different types of classes in high school, college, and universities. The yellow boxes are for traditional lecture-based class, and the hollow boxes are for interactive engagement. The graph is in such a way, I'm not going to the details, but the graph is plotted in such a way that the slope does matter. Higher slope, higher learning performance. So you can clearly see that wherever there is interactive engagement class, the average gain, they call it the slope as average gain, there is a doubling effect. 0.2 becomes 0.4 or 0.5. So more than double the learning happens. Quantitatively, if somebody wants to argue how interactive classes are working, well, there is a doubling of the learning in the interactive class. So such studies are plenty in the literature, not only in America, but across the globe, which essentially means that there is something in teaching strategy. So if you want me to tell the output in all those research studies in one sentence, here it is. The primary takeaway from research on RBIS or active learning, research-based instructional strategies, is that student learning success depends much less on what teachers do than what teachers ask their students to do. So this means that the teaching strategy that you are adopting, it should be in such a way that most of the time students will be doing something in the class, not you. So because the success depends upon how much they are working. And listening to somebody is not a good way of getting experience in working. Working or thinking experience have to come only by thinking only. So you need to provide opportunities for them to think in the class, ask them to do something. Choosing a strategy, so you have these levels, you have the outcomes in these levels. Now the question that you need to ask is, does your teaching strategy involves some activities for them to do with the corresponding level that you have targeted? You have outcome in apply level, you have outcome in analyze level, but are you asking them to think in these levels in your classrooms, or are you just making them listening to you? There's a vast difference between these two things. One particular methodology or method of teaching, which is called flipped class, how we can do online, because now the classes are mainly going to be online. Here is a slide which compares the flipped approach to the traditional approach. On your left side is traditional approach. Before the first class, what do the students do in the traditional class? They do nothing. They simply come for the first class. But in flipped class, they have to do a lot of work. Before they come to the first class, they are introduced to the topic via video or textbooks or some reference material or your own slides or your own recorded video. But the content is already pushed to them online. So they have to watch it and come. They will not understand, but the exposure is given already. That is the idea. Now, when they come to the class, traditional approach, what they do, teacher tells or explains stuff. Teacher give a lecture. But in flipped class, please see that teacher is not lecturing. The moment they come to the class, teacher is asking a question to them. And then they are actually working on it. What is teacher's duty in a flipped class? How they actually do this question. That means teacher is constantly doing learning verification, going from student to student, how they do this. And whenever they make mistakes, you give the feedback. You are the subject expert, so you know where they are making mistakes. First, allow them to make a mistake and then provide the feedback. Do this n number of cycles and you'll see that many students perform much, much better. After the first class, in traditional way, what they do homework. They can do homework in the flipped approach also. So this is one particular research-based instructional strategy which produced results, better results. So now I want you to do something. I want you to write down a lecture topic and keep an outcome for that, and design an activity in a flipped class. And let me know your ideas. So we'll I hope you get the task. Basically, write down a lecture topic and design a flipped classroom activity as per your expected outcome. So as and when the response comes, okay. Can we have 2 action verbs in one learning outcome? Possible, Vinitha, but normally we suggest to use one learning outcome just to avoid confusion, but you can put it in a very clear fashion. There is no prescription. You have to use only one learning outcome, but generally that is just to avoid the confusion. Rupa is writing keeping cues. Yeah, but Rupa, can you share me one quiz question? I want to see the kind of question that, or the kind of task that you are putting to the students based on the outcome that you are expecting. That is very important. You have an outcome with you, right? Your action should be according to the outcome. Okay, business intelligence, asking questions about the terms. Yeah, asking students about the term. Balance sheet preparation for class. What are different assets and liabilities? Yeah, preparation of a balance sheet can be a good activity. See, what I'm trying to say is the activity should take a few minutes of thinking time and then preparation. It should not be like yes or no question. This activity that we are talking about in the flipped class should take a few minutes thinking time, and then actually they should work with the pen and paper or computer or whatever it is, but it should be an involved job. What is the function of thermoflask? Okay, thermoflask. Yeah, write down the functions of thermoflask. If the outcome is the student should be able to explain the functions of thermoflask. Okay, it's that why I'm saying the task that you are giving should be depending upon what is that you want them to do. Okay, outcome is given. Prachi is giving outcome as recognize the type of ads there in the market. Activity, collect a sample of all types of ads from newspaper, magazine, YouTube, radio. Now in the outcome itself, I have slightly disagreement because recognize is the word that you used. Recognize observable action. They are recognizing in their mind. Is it observable to you? So I think recognize may not be the right word. You need to find out what exactly you want them to do when they recognize the ads. So students design experiment based on acids and bases. Yeah. When you say designed experiment, still that's not very clear. When you give a task to the students, the most important thing is it should be very clear what is to be done. Design experiments, it's a very broad term. What exactly to be done, you need to pinpoint. Cold thing is kept cold and hot thing is hot. Yeah, Tuba, you need to be not getting the idea what you are trying to tell. We will see ethical dilemma is the topic. Share video on ethical dilemma. Activities, ask students what they would do in that situation and held debate on it. Yes, this kind of exercises will be good for if your outcomes are in the evaluation level. So you put them in a dilemma, put them in a conflict situation, ask them to take a decision by themselves. So that will develop their developing hypothesis skill. So this kind of exercises are good for if you have outcomes in evaluate level. While teaching product life cycle, we can give them names of companies having multiple products and ask them to divide them on the basis of their stage. Yeah, we can ask them to practically anything. The question is, what is the outcome that you are having
and whether this activity is matching with that. Learning outcome is compare and evaluate mainstream Indian cinema and parallel Indian cinema. This is an analytical level thinking is what teacher is saying. There is a comparison. But teacher is also telling evaluation. So I don't know whether teacher wants them to be in the evaluate level. But if I take analyze level and compare mainstream and Indian cinema and parallel Indian cinema. Now what is the activity? Watch a suggested movie screening and analyze shall be done for further evaluation in the class. Right, but Vanida, the activity is not very clear. Watching is part is clear, but what do you mean by analyze? Are you asking them to write a critique on that movie? Or are you asking them to compare the features, what features of parallel cinema and the mainstream cinema? So there are, see, it's always a devil is in the details. We have to be very clear what is that we want them to come up with. And that should reflect upon our activity instruction. It will take some time. It is not easy to tell them, design an activity and then communicate with using proper words in a very crystal clear fashion. Network problem, so I could not join. Okay, hope you will get it back. Benefits of object-oriented programming. Swapna, that is a topic, but what do you want them to do? To introduce plot as an element of novel. Yeah, but all these things, what I'm seeing is teachers are writing their wish list. We need to be clear what you want your students to do in the flipped class and what is your outcome. Is there a match between these two? How will you write to introduce plot as an element of novel? How will you write on pandemic situation? They will think how to start. How will you write on pandemic situation? How will you write? Now, these questions, one of the issues that I am seeing is, if I am sitting in your class and you're asking me to do, I'm not clear what to do. So that's what I'm saying, keep on saying, students, when you give an instruction to do something, the steps or the action expected should be very clear. How do you write on pandemic situation is not a very clear question. Discussion for comparison. Yes, a discussion for comparison for the movie part. Yeah, but when you say discussion, one problem is that's again a vague way of telling. They will keep on talking something. You may not get something in concrete. So identify the features. Some features you can say parallel cinema and mainstream cinema, and then ask them to identify those things. So our instruction should be that the coining words is very important.
So we have few more in Q&A box where outcome is also there. So I'll read it out.
Yeah.
So the topic is corporate identity. Outcome is analyze, and activity is ask students to go through the websites of a company and identify the content that is covered and how it impacts the image of the company.
Okay. So essentially, at some point, teachers will realize that your outcome is actually giving you the activity. Your outcome is giving you the activity that you want them to do. What is the outcome? Outcome is compare something. What should be the activity? Compare something. You cannot have an outcome compare and ask them to simply, come up with a new idea or remember something. If your outcome is compare, then action is also compare. So designing activity will not be a huge issue if you put
I think there is a technical problem at your end. Your video is paused. Meanwhile, participants request, so you have to write the outcome also along with the activity so that sir can compare if it is matching up with the outcome.
I'm back.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You're audible now.
So at this point, now what we do is we have to break at 4:30. now we have touched upon two aspects of outcome-based education. One is, as you see, the
Again, your video is paused. We cannot hear you.
It seems some technical issues from his end.
Yes, ma'am. Probably because of the weather or something.
connectivity issues, but hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yes,
yes.
sir. You're audible now.
So we will now go back to the slides one more time, and then so essentially we discussed one particular method of teaching called flipped class. Some questions, some few things that you need to remember for flipped class. The lecture videos that you are going to upload, make sure that it is of short duration. Don't give 2 hours of a video and ask students to watch and come. They won't come. So make it like 10-15 minutes, like modules of videos or any reading material, make it short. And when they come to your online class, don't give a lecture again, because lecture is already over. You can ask them to do something and give varied activities. Sometimes multiple choice questions, sometimes problem solving, sometimes provide reasons, sometimes explain the concepts, and all the activity that you mentioned in the chat box, question answer session, all those things you can ask them to do, but not give a lecture in the flipped class. Some FAQs. Can I cover the same content using a flipped class format? Answer is yes. Most teachers cover more content and students learn better. How will students respond? Students are human beings, and human beings initially resist for any externally imposed change. So you can see some uneasiness with the students when you change the teaching methods, but that is okay. That is a general behavior. You need to convince them that this is for their goodness. Can I use this format in large class? The answer is yes. Can I use this format in mathematically oriented courses? The answer is yes. Second method of teaching, it is called PBL, problem-based learning, or it's also known as project-based learning. It's also known as inquiry-based learning. It's also known as challenge-based learning. The general feature of this method is described in this slide. If you are a teacher who is not very well versed with the methodology teaching, I don't recommend this particular method to start. This is slightly difficult. In PBL, students are presented with a complex, ill-structured problem. So I want you to underline that word, ill-structured, because when they come to the class in the first time in PBL, teacher is providing a problem to them. There is not even a video or any kind of prior information to them. And on the top, the problem is ill-structured, which means it is not like the problem that they see in the end of every chapter in a textbook. Those problems are structured problems. This problem is ill-structured. You made it purposefully ill-structured. Second step in this method is students work to define the problem and to identify what they know and that is relevant to this particular problem. They also identify what they should, what they should know to proceed and how they will learn it. Third step, students engage in learning independently and then discuss among themselves, online or offline, to share learning and to use their existing and new knowledge to formulate solutions. They assess the quality of their proposed solutions by group discussions or whatever method and decide what additional learning is needed to select and refine their solutions. Step 2 and 3 are only done by students, no teacher involvement. Teacher comes in first and fourth. The fourth step is the cycle is repeated until the students arrive at an acceptable solution, which then they present online in written or oral format to the teacher. So now let us try to understand the methodology. Here, teacher is acting as a guide. Those who have done PhD program, they know what guide and student won't sit in a formal classroom. But in a PhD program, students learn a lot. It is a kind of self-driven knowledge. Guide will provide you guidance. So you need to work a lot. In PBL, the students, the onus of learning is with the students. So one requirement probably is you may need responsible learners if you want to use this method, but it works wonderfully. They will have, so your job is only to provide this ill-structured problem. Ill-structured means open-ended. There can be multiple possibilities. The solution may not be known straightforward. That is called ill-structured or open-ended problem means. So they have to work very rigorous to come up with something which looks meaningful. For that, they have a lot of homework, a lot of background preparation. They have to know everything about the problem. So such kind of deep learning, if you are planned, PBL is a good method. One challenge for a teacher is how to design such kind of problem. You need to have a lot of subject knowledge to come up with such kind of problem. You may not, the textbooks may not help you, because as I said, those problems are already known how to solve it. These are all unsolvable problems in your domain. But students learn better. Why this IBL, PBL? What is the principle behind it? As you can see in this slide, there are 4 quadrants: low content, low processing ability; high content, low processing ability; high content, high processing ability; low content, high processing ability. So in X and Y axis is content, X axis is process. Process means how the learner is adept to do things cognitively, thinkingly. Content is the topics. So when they come to your course, they are actually in the lower left lower quadrant, low content, low processing ability. That's why they are coming to you as a student. When they leave you from the course, they
So you're not audible. I mean, again, the video has paused.
Prasad sir?
Tushar sir, will it help if we ask her to switch off his video?
That audio is not visible, madam. Sir's audio
Yeah.
and video both are stuck.
Both are stopped.
Both are stopped, yes.
No, if he, turns off his video,
think
will
there
his
is coming,
connectivity
yeah.
improve?
problem.
Is backing, yeah, connectivity issues.
Come back at least very fast.
Yeah.
So yeah. So now
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can see the slide again in a minute. So what we are telling is there are two ways of taking unengaged students to the expert students. One is push content first, then work on their processing ability. Another one is just opposite. Work on their processing ability first, then provide content. Lot of studies have been done on this. And hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what it is suggest, the results suggest that process emphasis first is better. This may be surprised for many teachers because traditionally what we do is we push content first and then ask them, when you push lot of content, then we occasionally ask them to do process. There are quizzes, there are tests, there are end semester examination. Those are all methods to help them to process. But in PBL or in flipped class, whatever two methods that we discussed, process is emphasized first. Content is not given much importance. Because developing an expert, what research says is that process emphasis first has to come. So teachers, when you go for OBE to the class, we should not focus on the content first. Content is important, but not focus them first. Ask them to do things using the content. And in that process, they will grasp content. So that is the method of IBL or PBL, problem-based learning. We will have a break here after this slide. This slide talks about 10 worst teaching mistakes all of us do. First mistake, when you ask a question, immediately look for volunteers. Whose hand is raising? All of us do that, right? Bad practice. Why bad practice? Because the number of volunteers will be fixed in a class. Always the same guy will say, I will say the answer. So others know this and they don't even process your question. So to avoid that, it is very good practice to ask questions in the class, but you pick up the person to answer. That has to be a habit. Second mistake, call on students cold, which means you ask a question and then demand the answer immediately. That is called call on students cold. Bad practice. Every student's background is different. Background means learning background. They are standing in different points of learning curve. Depends upon their preparedness, they may be ready with the answer. So it's always good to give some processing time before you ask the answer. Third mistake, turn classes into PPT show. You have a 50 minutes class, go with 78 slides. Bad practice. Fail to provide variety in teaching. You need to come up with, that's why this RBIS is important. We have various methods, not need to stick to one method. Have students work in groups with no individual accountability. I have a team of 10 students, but I don't know who is doing what. Bad practice. Fail to demonstrate relevance. In adult learning, learner is always worried, why am I learning this? You need to provide a context. Give tests that are too long. The existing teaching method is you teach so many days and then give a long test. After 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we have a 1.5 hour test. Instead of that, more effective is every week, half an hour test. Test can be short, but frequency has to be high. That's what research says. Get stuck in a rut, which means if you teach the same course again and again, after some time you may not become innovative. So change the course, otherwise you will stuck in a rut. Teach without clear learning outcomes. Without any clarity on what is the intended learning, don't teach. It will not be effective teaching. Last mistake, disrespect students. If you want students to respect you, first you respect students. So at this point, we'll have go to the chat box, and for the methodology that we discussed, are there any questions?
Should we pick up some questions now?
Sorry?
Are we taking some questions now?
Yeah, we are taking some questions.
Okay. I would like to invite
about two methods we discussed, flipped class and PBL.
Okay.
So participants, if they have questions on that, we'll take.
Yes, sir, we definitely have some questions. So I invite Nidhi ma'am, our BMS coordinator, to take up some questions.
Thank you, Prachima. There are questions, but not precisely from these two topics.
Okay. We will answer because answering questions is the most important part in OB.
Yes. What it means by RBIS? That's the first question.
Okay. RBIS is research-based instructional strategy, which means these methods are not based on my personal experience. These are all based on studies done with a large number of students and teachers on various places, and the efficacies of these methods have been tested in a scientific manner.
In one of your slides, sir, you had used one term, studio physics. So, and workshop physics. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Studio physics or workshop physics essentially means your classroom is kind of a small laboratory. You need to give hands-on exercise to the students. They will be cutting something or making some models, miniature models, or connecting some circuits. Bring a lab component to the classroom. That is called studio physics.
Participants, if you have any question, you can put it on the question answer box, because right now I can just see responses of the I mean, the exercises which you have given to the participants. There was a question again, what it means by flipping.
Flipping essentially means you usually what you do, you give a lecture in the class and ask the students to do the homework in their house. In flipping, you flip these two things. You do the homework in the class, lecture in their house, which means you digitize your lecture and ask them to watch in their house. When they come to the class, you ask them to do something, homework. So that is the flipping part.
And there's a question, what is the role of IQAC in outcome education or in developing the college in all aspects? If so, why the IQAC should not be created an employment post in colleges?
Yeah, one job of IQAC is we have this kind of webinars or discussions where, you know, there could be exchange of ideas of how the effective teaching learning should happen. So this kind of, and training the faculty how to do outcome-based education or different teaching methods which are better than the existing situation. That is what quality assurance is the job, you know. So assure the quality, that is a job.
Okay, so there's one question on the chat box also. What are the other names of PBL which you have mentioned on your slide? Other names of PBL.
It is called, also known as inquiry-based learning, IBL. Okay, and there is like project-based learning or challenge-based learning. So these are all different names, but essentially the methodology is the same.
Okay, there's one question. So can you elaborate about think aloud paired problem solving?
Think aloud pairs of problem solving is essentially, it's also known as peer instruction model, which means you come to the class without teaching, you ask a multiple choice question, a conceptual question. Then ask every student to respond. Randomly, you pick up somebody, but no discussion between students. Okay. And then you collect the response, but don't say yes or no, whether the correct answer is correct or not. After individual students respond, you ask the students to discuss now and then answer. In the second stage, you see how many students are actually changing their first opinion. So that means they are actually thinking about this. During the discussion, they are learning. It's called peer learning model. Okay. And if still they are not getting that right answer, teacher will tell. And teacher can give an explanation. So the lecture of that part comes only at the end.
In group activity, is it preferable to let students decide their group members, or should teacher create the groups?
Yeah. So if you allow them to form the groups, you know what will happen. They've already grouped, so they will go to their comfort zone. So it's not good idea to allow them to form the group. But if you make the group, they will be less motivated. So this is the challenge. What generally adopted is, let them form the group, but you tell the conditions. The condition should be in such a way that every group should contain a more prepared, a medium prepared, or less prepared student, so that they can have some meaningful interaction between them. So you choose the condition, but let them form the. One way what we do is, we tell that every team in the class should have an average. I mean, the CGPA of that team should be close to the class average. So essentially, they have to pick up a more prepared guy and medium prepared guy and less prepared guy, so that this condition is satisfied.
So there is a problem which I think many of the teachers who are having many number of students, everyone is facing that. Sir, in accounts class of more than 100 students, is that how flip class is possible online? Please guide. There are two issues over here: number of students and online.
Okay. See, as far as methodology is concerned, there is no special methodology for large class or small class. It's a question of scaling up. It's like, there are rules. Are there rules for small cities and big cities? No, rules are same. How to implement, that's a scaling up issue. So if you want to implement this, the what do you call flipped class, first let us discuss about offline. Suppose you have a large class and teacher is coming physically and then want to implement the flipped class. You may need to take assistance from some of your students. Some students you think they are slightly better off. You can take their help, ask the question to the students, and along with you, the other person also may be helping to collect the answers, etc. That is one way of. Other way is teaching academy means 2 teachers go to the class. There are various ways to circumvent it, but methodology remains the same. All that you need is assistance because number is high. So flipped calls also, you need to, large class or small class, your idea is to pose questions and ensure that everybody is actually doing. To do that, you need some pair of hands. So either you can use some group leaders you can take from this class, not just one, and then ask them to help you. That is one way. Online is now becoming even difficult. What you can possibly do is you can ask questions. Even the group work is challenging for online, but you can randomly pick people. Random choice is one particular strategy you can use in a class of a large number, and you can put some kind of a, forceful thing like penalty. If they don't answer, this much mark will go somewhere. Some responsibility or some kind of a penalization should be there. Otherwise, they won't take it very seriously. But you can still do that, saying that you call the person, don't call the same person again and again. So online flipped class, you throw an activity, give some time, check in between. You call the person, ask them to show what is their writing through the camera, or you can ask questions. Keep on intervening them and verify that they're actually progressing in the learning curve.
There's one question from a finance teacher probably. In finance courses, what teaching method would reduce the phobia of numbers amongst the students?
So phobia, usually see there are people with a driving phobia. How do that phobia goes? After driving several hours or after driving so many times, the phobia will go only by practice. So there will be one way is there can be a gradation of challenges. Start with the small challenges in numbers and then regulate that challenge gradually. You may have to walk with them and then allow them to increase that difficulty level with the numbers. Don't give a very challenging problem in the beginning. So have some kind of a gradation in the challenges and make them do the things. That's the only way. No number of advice will do this. Ask them to do things in numbers.
Okay. So there are a lot of questions on the question and answer section also. Like, so do we have to give justification for all course outcomes with all program outcomes?
I think Sai is not connected right now. His video has paused.
Yeah. Okay, ma'am, what's the time constraint we are having, Prachi ma'am? So, because there are a lot of questions pouring in and I don't think we'll be able to handle all.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
I think sir will be back now. Yeah, yes, he's back.
Now it is 4:30. These are the coordinators.
Yes,
sir.
Yes. So,
good method of teaching is stop the class on time.
yes. So over to you, Prachi ma'am now.
Thank you, Nidhi ma'am. So shall we continue with the session?
No, I mean, what I prefer is if there are any burning questions from the participants, we can take 1 or 2, but I think sticking time is very important.
Okay.
We can go on and on about outcome-based education, but the most basic aspects we touched upon, which is designing outcome and make the students to do on this expected outcome n number of times. These are the 2 very important aspects of outcome.
Yes, sir. I think, Nidhi ma'am, we can take few more questions.
Okay, I'll do that. So there was one question which I was asking at that time. So do we have to give justification for all course outcomes with all program outcomes?
Justification in the sense?
Probably, I mean, eventually it should be exhibited on the program outcome also.
So, I mean, usually what suppose you have an outcome, the teachers are obliged to verify it. So in the assessment, when you do the test, these outcomes should be verified. Suppose you have 5 outcomes, all the 5 outcomes should be verified. Suppose I have 10 outcomes, but I then verify only 4. Then why do you have that 6 outcomes, the remaining 6 outcomes? There's no point. So there should be always a one-on-one correspondence between outcomes and the assessment. That is only justification that how many outcomes I should have.
Now, there is one general students problem which teachers are facing is if students are not submitting assignment, how do we motivate them?
Okay. See, student motivation is a big topic, and there are 2-3 suggested methods of motivating them. But please understand that every student comes with a different motivation level, and a teacher can only influence the motivation of students, not change the motivation as such. And the difficulty is that every student motivated by different aspects. So that becomes very challenging for a teacher. There is no like one method so that I will use it and then every student will get motivated. Such a thing is not existing. Okay. One way is for this assignment and all, or in general, how to motivate students means there are 3 ways. One is provide more autonomy to them in deciding classroom teaching. That means what is the class time, when should be the class time, some kind of ownership, what is the topic to be discussed today. So this kind of choice, if you can give them, that there are research say that choice actually increase the motivation level. Okay. Another thing is they should see some purpose in learning that subject. So if you can provide some way that, okay, this learning is important, they should see some purpose. If the same learning is coming from various sources, why should they sit in your class? So sitting in your class, let them realize that there is something, the difference is made. If a teacher can make that kind of a feeling, then they will see a purpose and that will increase their motivation. Okay. And the last one is, so one is called autonomy and the purpose, and the other one, the last one is relevance, or sorry, the mastery. Mastery means they should feel that they are getting skillful in listening to you, after listening to you. So your class should be in such a way that by sitting in a number of your classes, they should see that they are becoming better off in that subject. To convince them or to realize them that they are becoming an expert. That is a third key for motivating. So if you can connect these things in your classroom teaching, again, many students will get motivated, not all. The problem with the teachers, many teachers complain that students are motivated because not all students are motivated. It will never happen. Okay. But if you can incorporate these 3 elements, autonomy, purpose, and mastery, then there will be better response from the students.
I think with that, I end my question answer session. Though we'll have a copy of all the questions with us. So if it is like an important question, we will communicate it to you, sir. Over to Prachi ma'am, please.
Okay, thank you, Nidhi ma'am. Even I have few questions, sir. So first thing I want to ask, should we include all the levels of Bloom's taxonomy while designing the outcomes? Like we have so many levels, should we include all the levels while designing various outcomes for a course?
Okay, so there is no prescription that one course should have all the levels of outcome. One course, there is no necessary that it has to touch upon all the levels. At the same time, there is no harm if the institute or the college or the teacher decides that this course have to touch upon all the levels. There is no prescription. It is up to the institute whether this particular course has to touch upon all the levels.
So, sir, how many outcomes are acceptable or preferable for a particular course?
How many outcomes are you planning to test at the end? That many outcomes are possible.
Okay. So, sir, is Bloom taxonomy should be used as a rule book or as a guide to I use the action verbs or design the outcomes? Can it be used as a ultimate guide?
Not ultimate. It is a popular guide. The reason for popularity is it is simple. There are other taxonomies. They are more complex.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. It is such an enriching session and we have so many questions and we are actually enjoying it because it's actually practically related to our day-to-day functioning in the college. Thank you so much, sir. So I think we have come to an end of the webinar. So I would like to invite our Vice Principal, Professor Sandeep Shetty, to propose a vote of thanks.
Good evening. I take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to thank our benevolent management for providing this platform to organize this webinar. My sincere thanks to our chairman, CA Shankar B. Shetty, for gracing this occasion. I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Edamana Prasad, professor at IIT Madras, for the valuable and informative session on outcome-based education. Sir, we are really touched with the content you have taken for this webinar. My sincere thanks to our principal, Dr. Sridhara Shetty, who is the backbone of this webinar. Thank you, sir. I acknowledge the presence of our General Manager, Dr. Sandeep Singh, and Junior College Vice Principal, Pratibha ma'am, for your gracious presence. My sincere thanks goes to our IQAC Coordinator and Vice Principal, Dr. Liji Santosh, for your support in organizing this webinar. My gratitude to the organizing team and technical team for your sincere effort in organizing this webinar. Finally, the wonderful participants who have turned up in such a great number. Thank you one and all.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.